Hey guys, welcome to another episode of EFT Appetizers. I'm really excited to be doing this show, and thank you so much for your wonderful feedback. It's really been amazing. I would have been happy with 50 views, and now I basically have 700 views, and it's only been a week. It's amazing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Attachment is not just about receiving, it's really about giving and receiving. And in fact, when we give, I think we actually produce more oxytocin than when we receive. So thank you for my bursts of oxytocin. It's really feels good. So thank you. So today we are going to be talking about stage one. Stage one is when we meet the couple, we need to de-escalate them. We need to kind of get that escalation down and kind of stop the conflict so that we could then move on to stage two, which is restructuring their bond. There's no way we could restructure their bond if they're not feeling safe and if they keep kind of biting at each other and getting more and more escalated and heated. So the only way to do this is to kind of do like, you know when you're watching sports, and I really don't know because I don't watch sports, but there's instant replays, and you slow it down and you can see the tiny little moves, like, oh, that's why the ball ricocheted off. Oh, okay, that's why the fumble. I don't know what I'm saying with fumble, but I'm sure, hopefully it sounds good enough. So we're going to slow it down and really zoom into each piece. So the therapist will probably want to definitely take notes for this because it's a little bit too hard to hold in your brain. If you're not familiar with the cycle, try to get yourself a little familiar with it. Otherwise, I'll try to. Cycle is basically, it includes both spouses, and it reflects how they feed off each other and how the more they try to come close and connect, the more disconnected they get. So once they get into a disconnected place, the more they're pushing towards it, the more they're losing it. It's like this awful, awful state of being, and it's so, so, so horrible and so sad. And so the more they're in it, the more panicky they get. The more panicky they get, the more far apart they are, which gives them more reason to panic. So then they do what they do, which then causes more distance, which then adds to the panic, which then gives them that more reason to fight harder until, it's crazy. I'm sure you've all been there, and if you haven't, I have. It's really, really not a comfortable spot to be in a real place of de-escalation, in a real place of disconnection and escalation. So what do we have to do? We have to, let's make this easy. Thank you, Kathy Stavrianopoulos, my lovely colleague who helped me teach this piece. We're going to look for some markers. When we look for these markers, we're really investigating, and we're asking a lot of questions. This is step two. When we investigate, step two in stage one. So, what kind of questions are we asking? Just like EFT, just remember AFT. No, sorry, let's switch it. ATF. Sorry, Kathy, I switched it. A is for action. We're going to look for the action tendency. T is for thoughts. Thought about yourself, thought about the other, thought about the situation. F is for feeling, and we've got two parts for this feeling. We have to find the secondary feeling and the primary feeling. Primary feelings are the more vulnerable parts of us, like the fear and the sadness, but it's not comfortable to stay there. So we have these wonderful ways of moving away with our secondary emotions, and secondary emotions are like a cover. Like if I don't like shame, and that's not an if, I really don't like shame. If I don't like to sit in my shame, then I'm going to go to a secondary emotion, and usually I will then start blaming. Not blaming you, probably blame my husband, poor guy. So that's something there. Somebody else maybe doesn't like to feel sad, so their secondary may actually look like, everything's fine. Yeah, it's fine. So secondary emotions could be any type of emotion, but it's really a cover and a way to disconnect from the uncomfortable, vulnerable parts of us. So we're going to need to find some of the uncomfortable parts when we're investigating about the cycle. Once we reach down and find some of those uncomfortable parts, that's our step three. When we dip them into primary emotion, we predict that they cannot sit there too long in stage one because it's too dangerous. They're in the middle of a war zone. They're escalated, so they definitely can't sit there too long. It's hard enough to face it by themselves and then have their partner kind of chewing them out and showing a more vulnerable piece gives them, their partner, more fodder to chew out, so they're going to protect it. So they may dip in, but they'll come right back up to secondary. So don't get discouraged when that happens. We predict that will happen. So how does it look? I'll just play it out. on the therapist and the pursuer and the withdrawer. Okay, now let's put some names to this. Bob and... I can't think of a name. Mike and Jen. Okay? Mike and Jen. So, Mike and Jen, thank you so much for coming. Can you tell me a little bit about the times when you guys get disconnected, some of the times when you're in conflict? What comes up for you there? So now I'm just opening it up. I'm not asking specific questions yet. Mike, maybe I see you look ready to start. Can you help me out there? Yeah, when we get disconnected, it's just awful. Okay, what happens to you? What are you feeling? What are you thinking in that moment? I'm thinking, this is crazy. This is just so crazy. So you're thinking, this is so crazy. What are you feeling in that place? I'm feeling really, really annoyed. This is just too crazy. Yeah, so you're feeling really annoyed in this crazy place. So what might I see you do in that annoyed feeling, in that crazy place? Well, I'm just gonna, I hate to say it, but I'm just gonna yell at her because she kind of deserves it. Okay, so in this crazy place when you're so annoyed, the only thing you could do is yell, right? Yeah, right, so you yell, and of course you yell. So now I've got his action, his thought, and his feeling, his secondary feeling. I am going to link his action with her feeling because we need to show the interconnectivity of it. So it goes like this. Mike, when you start to yell, it goes, when Mike starts to yell, Jen, what might you be feeling at that moment? And so then Jen can say, I feel really like, what? Why is he yelling at me? Right, so that really is just a thought. So that's fine. We need to get to that feeling and maybe we need to conject. So you're like, what? Why is he yelling at me? Is that kind of like a shock? Yeah, I feel like shocked. Yeah, so you're feeling kind of shocked and you're like, why is he yelling at me? So what might I see you do in that place of shock? Well, then I'm going to be like, I'm going to try to tone it down, like tone down that yelling. So I'll be like, stop, it's not a big deal, Mike, calm down. Okay, so then he starts to yell at you. You feel this shock. You're like, why is he yelling at me? And so you want to tone it down. Of course you do. You don't know where this is coming from. So you do your best to tone it down and calm it down. Mike, calm down, calm down. Am I getting that? Yeah, Aviva, you're getting that. Okay, thank you. So Mike, what happens to you in that moment? What do you feel when Jen says calm down? And I'm doing this because I'm linking her action tendency to his feeling. I'm showing the interconnectivity. What happens to me when she says calm down, I realize that she doesn't realize what a big deal this is, so I'm going to help her know what a big deal this is. And I'm going to tell her, right, so I hear that you yell more, or you're going to tell her louder with more intensity to help her understand what a big deal this is. But what might you be feeling in that place when she tries to calm you down? I never really thought of that before, actually. Right, of course, Mike, of course you never thought of it, because it happened so quick, because you realize how important it is to tell her what a big deal this is. So of course you never thought about it, but maybe you could think about it here with me. What do you think? Okay, I guess I could. What am I feeling when she tells me to calm down? I feel dismissed. Right, how could you not feel dismissed? You're trying to come at her to show her something important and she's not hearing it. So how could you not feel dismissed? Yeah, so you said to me that when you feel this way, then you start to yell louder, right? Yeah, that's what I do. Okay, good. So Jen, what happens to you when you try to calm Mike down and then he yells louder at you? What might you be feeling? What's going on for you then? Well, then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is out of control. I can't. And so I just leave the room. You just leave the room. Right, because it's too out of control. You didn't know where this was coming from, so you had to just leave the room. Right, Aviva, I leave the room. And what might you be feeling that moment before you leave the room? We want to get the withdrawer to the place where they always run away from, so that's why I'm asking that. What happens to me the moment before I leave the room? I don't know. No, of course you don't know. Maybe we could pay a little attention to it now. Would that be okay? Yeah, I guess so. The moment before I leave the room, I mean, it feels scary. He's yelling at me so much. Right. So this is a scary place. You don't know what's happening. It's out of control and someone's yelling at you. Someone really important is yelling at you. So you feel scared. So you leave the room. Am I getting that? Yeah. Okay, good. So fear, by the way, is primary. So I did a little bit of my step 3. I dipped her into fear right there. So that was good. Okay, so you leave the room. And so Mike, when you see Jen leaving the room after you're trying to show her how important this is, what goes on for you? That's when I give up. I just give up. I just see there's no winning here, and I just give up, and I start saying, fine, you want to be that way? Fine, leave me. I don't care. Just leave the room. Oh, wow. So at that moment, you get signals that she's just not hearing you. She's not just dismissing you once, but she's actually leaving you. Right. So she's not only dismissing you, she's leaving the room. She's kind of abandoning you in that place. Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, she kind of is, maybe. So how could you not give up then, right? Because if you kept pursuing this, but you knew that she kind of abandons you, then where would that leave you? I don't know. I'm just going to guess here. It almost feels like rejected or neglected. Yeah, something like that. So there I conjectured. And really, actually, once I conject, I need to say, am I getting that? Because I don't want to come off as the expert and say, this is what you're feeling, Mike. I want to check in with what Mike is feeling. So I would actually say, is it maybe like an abandoned, neglected feeling or rejected? Am I getting that? I come with a lot of tentativeness. I'm not the expert when I'm naming his emotions. He's just kind of trying it on. Yeah, I guess. Right. So, of course, at that moment, you want to give up because you don't want to face that. You don't want to have to face that kind of rejection. So you kind of just say, forget it. Just leave me. And maybe it feels better for you to pull away than to have her pull away. Because if she pulls away, that's got to hurt a lot, right? Yeah. Okay, so now I dipped him more into primary. And the more I do this, this is great. I'm showing the interconnectivity. And I'm showing how the more that they go around this cycle, the more distance they get. But now I need to really spell that out for them because they never thought of it in terms of this. They just know what they're experiencing. They know their spouse is nuts. And they don't get, how they're feeding this thing. So then I'm going to pull back and I'm going to do my step 4. And I'm going to say something like, well, first I'm going to reframe the entire cycle by first reflecting it. I'm going to go through the whole thing. So you start by starting to yell a little bit, and of course you do, I'm going to validate it, but I'm going to go around and around and around. We do not go around it one time. That doesn't show interconnectivity. We go around it 2 or 3 times. So that way we really show how it spreads them apart. And then we say, and this is so sad because what I see here is the two of you trying so hard to make things better, trying so hard to connect. And the more that you do this, the more you try in the ways that you know how to try, the more disconnected you get. And that really leaves you in the opposite of where you're trying to go. So this is really hard. But the good news is that there's a lot of hope here because just slowing it down, helping us understand what's happening, is the first step in doing it differently. And it's not my belief, but my knowledge that the 3 of us could do it differently just by having different kinds of conversations and trying to understand exactly what's going on for us and seeing how it lands on the other and then seeing how it affects the other. We can make a lot of change here and we can actually get to a place of wanting to connect, trying to connect that will result in connection. Would you guys like that? Yeah, we would like that. Is it hard to imagine that? Yes. Yeah, of course it's hard to imagine because we've never done it that way. Yeah, but thank you so much for helping me understand this, and we definitely can do it. We've done it for 30 years in EFT, so we certainly could do it for you guys. That's stage 1. We want to make sure that we're uniting them against the cycle, and we also want to infuse some hope that we could do it differently. So I hope that was clear for stage 1. I know there's a lot of information there. You may want to watch this a few times just to get it right, and I may do a future video that goes on the nuances of it all. But if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments section. You could find a local EFT supervisor to help you with this. And one shameless little plug. I'm doing a training this June, on June 8th, 2016, with George Fowler. We're going to do all-day role play. You're going to be watching role plays and doing role plays, and if you want to sign up, I'd love to have you there. Go to eft.eventb.com and register. All right, guys, have a great week. Take care. Bye.